Every couple needs to understand marriage is an institution designed by God, whereby one man and one woman are joined together to become one flesh. Marriage is God's plan. He wants to unify two individuals to become one mature and loyal team, committed to the purpose of loving each other for a lifetime. God created a process for couples to build a friendship, a companionship, a relationship. It's time for us to stop limiting the Word of God. And it's time to begin using it as a certified blueprint for a successful marriage. Your marriage plan must include a solid foundation in which the constructed house can become an ideal home that will stand the test of time. Live your dreams.
Made us one, so our hearts can be together. God made us one, you and me forever.
Welcome back to Marriage Plans for Two, Chapter 15, The Marriage Equation.
And what we're asking you to do is to get in and do the math with us in order to be able to solve this equation.
An equation is a statement that two expressions are equal. They provide a concise way to represent relationships between variables and constants. Mathematicians and physicists use equations to solve various interconnected problems.
Right. And so in Marriage Plans for Two, we endeavor to use the marriage equation to show how there can be balance in a committed relationship between a husband and a wife who are actively operating to become one flesh. Due to the difference in the biblical roles and responsibilities of the interconnected couple, each spouse must endeavor to continually solve the marriage equation.
The oneness in their marriage will rest upon each partner's willingness to use their problem-solving skills.
And one thing that you have to understand is you do have problem-solving skills. You can solve the problem if you're willing to. And so when we deal with couples, one thing that you have to see is a couple is comprised of a man and a woman.
In order to produce a marriage equation, you will need one man and one woman who will become a husband and wife couple who willingly join themselves together and treat each other as equals as they operate in their God-given roles.
Yes.
Just like it takes two intersecting boards or beams in their proper order to make a cross,
That's right.
it takes two people, male and female, intersecting in their proper order to make a marriage.
Okay, and because God ordained marriage, it's every couple's best interest that God be a major part of their marriage. His presence makes it easier to solve any problem that arises in a marriage equation.
His word provides the variables needed to live happily ever after.
Happily ever after is what we want. But many couples who loved each other have gone their separate ways because they felt like they were not treated right.
The equation cannot be balanced if the wife feels overlooked, undervalued, and underappreciated.
And the equation cannot be balanced if the husband says he's heard everything he did wrong and not enough of what he did right.
Wow.
And so we move into that simple word that's called accountability. And if you're going to have a successful marriage, if you're going to be successful in your marriage, is accountability has to be a major part of it. Most people, they underestimate the importance of accountability. They don't want to say that it's a valuable thing.
And if I could define accountability, accountability is defined as an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility or to account for one's actions.
All right, so when you're dealing with accountability, we have to take some things into play. You know, a house versus a home, and then even long-term investments.
In order to keep a house, a home, and make marriage a lifelong investment, accountability must be factored into the equation. Whatever actions or behaviors that are introduced on one side of the equation affects the other side of the equation.
You know, therefore it's necessary that each partner consider the consequences of their actions before they introduce them to the relationship. You know, it's like a fire triangle. For a fire to get started or ignite, there must be three things. There has to be heat, fuel, and oxygen.
Taking away one will prevent or extinguish the fire.
That's right. And in order for an argument to get started or burst into flames, there must be a source of contention that ignites the argument. And that's the heat. You know, a source of combustion that will spread. That's the fuel. Or two people that openly air, heatedly vent their feelings and frustration. That's the oxygen.
Accountability is the extinguisher. It helps couples, one, avoid major quarrels.
Mm-hmm.
Two, it assists in extinguishing elementary, primary, or secondary disagreements. And how many people know we have all three in a marriage?
Yes, Lord.
And three, it reduces the impact and damage of contention.
Right. You know, you're going to need an extinguisher. And so let accountability be your extinguisher for your marriage. So let's go to the Bible. Genesis chapter 2 and verse 24. It says, "Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh."
The goal in the marriage equation is to become one flesh.
Mm-hmm.
To solve the equation, there must be some leaving, cleaving, and believing.
Come on now. Leave where you came from. Cleave to who you vowed to be with, and believe that God will see you through and to your future happiness.
An upward focus, love for God more than anything else creates a flourishing inner love for yourself, which allows you to express a sincere love for your spouse.
You know, at the end of the day, you must trust the advice of the Word of God.
You don't have to forget about your parents, but you should detach yourself enough to become self-governing in your own marriage.
That is correct. You must stick to like glue. That's what Cleveland talks about. Stick to like glue. And hold on to your spouse. Even if it means letting everything or everyone else go.
Remember, the objective is to become one flesh.
All right, now that's the objective. So you know, let's look at you know, biblical marriage, worldly marriage.
Okay.
Now, and you know, believe it or not, there is a difference.
Biblical truth tells us that God ordained the matrimonial union. God designed marriage to be between one man and one woman for a lifetime.
And take note, he created Eve using the part of Adam's body that is closest to his heart. It's real. All right, come on now. You know, so if I deal with a biblical marriage, I'm dealing with the multiplication side of things. You know, God says 1 times 1 equals 1. One man joined or fused to one woman equals one flesh. And if you don't mind, it is, if we deal with a worldly marriage, then the equation changes.
Yes.
It's 1 plus 1 equals 2.
2.
One man clinging bolted to one woman, you know, equals 2 individuals. So when it comes to God ordained marriage, is not an addition, it's a multiplication. 1 times 1 equals 1, but 1 plus 1 equals 2.
Two of the same gender is confusion and becomes an equation outside of God's original intent of two people of the opposite sex.
That's right. And if you want to get marriage right, you got to follow the first blueprint that God made, where Eve, which is a female, was made to be with Adam, that's a male.
He didn't create Adam to be with Eve, Yvonne, and Yvette, or Eve to be with Adam, Steve, and Stuart.
Yes. One thing that we've got to understand, it was one man
for one woman.
For one woman. Also, he didn't create Adam and Steve or Eve and
Yvonne.
Come on now.
It was one man for one woman.
Right. And in order to get the equation right, you must start with the right factors. You can't do a biblical equation if the factors are wrong. So let's go to the Bible. Let's look at 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 1 and verse 7. Verse 1 says, "Likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they also may, without the word, be won by the conversation of the wives." And if we go down to verse 7, it says, "Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers," come on husbands,
"be not hindered."
Be not hindered.
In Ephesians 5, 22 and 25 tells us, 22 says, "Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands,
Come on now.
as unto the Lord." 25 says, "Husbands, love your wives,
Come on.
even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it."
All right.
Colossians 3, verses 18 tells us, "Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands, as it is fit in the Lord." And verse 19 of Colossians 3 says, "Husbands, love your wives and be not bitter against them."
All right, so let's get into this marriage equation. One thing we have to look at is the equal sign is the thing that joins or makes an equation. So here we're going to look at that husband should equal wife.
An age-old question that usually bring about some old-fashioned discussions about marriage is, what is equality in marriage?
Good question.
Can the husband be the head of the woman as stated in Ephesians 5 and 23, and there still be equality in the relationship?
Good question. The husband and the wife will never be the same because they are two different people with two different physical characteristics, two different mental aptitudes, two different environmental influences. Equality in a marriage means that each spouse will embrace their harmonized roles, their value to the relationship, and their strengths and weaknesses while respecting the spouse's well-being and happiness.
Wow. God has provided order and answerabilities, but there is no such thing as a subservient role in a marriage relationship.
Never define it. One spouse is not better or greater than the other spouse.
Balance is achieved when a couple communicates effectively, support each other, know their responsibilities, and make decisions together.
Okay, like I say, and that's so true. So let's look at, we said that husband equals wife. Now, if you go back to the scriptures that we read and you look at it and you define it, husband's role equals love plus honor. The wife's role equals submit plus respect, / obey. And that's one of the things that we have to always factor into when we're trying to solve a marriage equation.
If we take a closer look at the scriptures that we read, we see an overview of the husband's role and the wife's role. When a husband loves and honors his wife,
That's right.
he is showing his affection for her.
Okay, and also, when a wife submits to and that, defers and obeys, which we're talking about, work with her husband, she is showing respect for him. Again, it's not a subservient manner, but acknowledging that due to God's biblical order in marriage, she is willing to defer to the decisions of her husband after discussing the matter at hand.
When opinions collide, a couple must be willing to hear one another.
That's right.
See the viewpoints of the other and feel the convictions of their spouse to settle on a common resolution.
That's right. Even if both parties cannot come to terms, they must learn to respectfully. And that key respectfully is very important. They've got to learn to respectfully agree to disagree in order to enjoy a healthy partnership.
Disclaimer: we did not make the rules of the game. We simply communicate what is written.
Today especially, we're living in a world that they don't want to hear what God has to say on the order.
Amen.
Everybody has their own opinion. But one thing that, we definitely have to just put in, we're just communicating what the Bible says. If you have an issue with it, you've got to take it up with God. So if we go on with the marriage equation and get a little bit deeper, if the husband equals the wife, and then you have the roles of the husband is to love and honor, and the roles of the wife is to submit plus respect. Then we can come up with a deeper equation that love plus honor equals submit plus respect and obey. And so, it is when you're going to deal with an equation, you've got to put in all the factors.
Unity and harmony are compromised when you don't keep this equation balanced. If either side is lacking or not in equilibrium, then one spouse can balance the equation by increasing the positive output on their side to negate the negative output on the other side.
And so, this is very important when you start dealing with relationships, especially when you deal with the marriage equation. If the husband is not showing enough affection to his wife, she can balance his lack of affection with more respect. What am I saying? If you have a balanced equation and the husband takes away and the scale becomes unbalanced, the wife has to add to her part in order to balance it. It's the same thing there too. If the wife is not showing enough respect to her husband, he can balance, her lack of respect with something like more love, more assurance, more tenderness until the respect increases. All right, so let's go back to the scripture again. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 33 and 34 says, "But he that is married cared for the things that are of the world, how he may please his wife. But she that is married cared for the things of the world, how she may please her husband."
Paul advised that if you remain unmarried, you may be more efficient in your work and calling of God because you are only accountable to God. But the moment you choose to join yourself to a spouse, you choose to multitask because you now have dual responsibilities.
You must remain in good relationship to God while maintaining a good relationship with your spouse. You're accountable to God and also accountable to your spouse.
We will get deeper in that subject when we cover chapter 18.
Okay, so you're telling me just to go on then. So you ask the question sometimes, what is the right answer to your marriage?
An equation is also defined as the process of equating one thing with another. Mm-hmm. It is a mathematical statement that involves two expressions on opposite sides of an equal sign.
So look at this. So no matter how many variables that you have, no matter how many numbers or symbols that's used in that equation, it is still considered one equation that must be solved in order to get the answer. And the same thing with a marriage, and we talk about this marriage equation. A marriage in God's eyesight is and always will be only one equation.
According to God and His Word, any marriage equation can be solved with the right instruction, knowledge, understanding, and wisdom.
It's one thing that's major. There is no problem that is too hard for God because He has all the right answers.
If a couple is willing to put the time in and study, they can achieve success and solve their marriage equation.
Yes, and so the marriage equation is for you and your partner to solve. Yes, it's considered a problem by many, but not to God. It's an opportunity for you to be able to get the right answer. We want to thank you once again for joining in with us for Marriage Plans for Two. And we look forward to seeing you for another chapter.
Thank you.
When Lisa and I got married in June of 1989, we were two inexperienced young adults with nothing but a passion for God and for each other. 30 plus years of marriage has provided us with the wisdom to share a few of the things we have learned. Marriage Plans for Two is a comprehensive guide designed to help couples gain the necessary knowledge to build a successful relationship before and after their wedding. Purchase a copy today. Invest in your tomorrow. Live your dream.